the sunshine.
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to Coffee Thoughts episode 37, I believe, 37. Kind of sad because I don't have coffee, and the reason is because I just had a huge Starbucks cold brew, and I probably should just give myself a little break on the caffeine. But spirit of coffee is still well and alive, and yeah, figured it was a striped sweater day. Nice little striped sweater, pretty cozy. It's cold outside. It's like snowing and being Canada. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on Apple Podcast or SoundCloud, please also subscribe to the podcast on there, because I'm doing an episode every single week. And this week I kind of struggled again with just knowing what to talk about, and I think part of why that is because when I started my podcast, I was just always recording it on my phone, and I didn't really have a schedule for it, so I was just kind of doing it whenever. And like, since I've started doing it a weekly video, number one, there's just so many more things to talk about, because I see everybody's comments, and there's so many different ideas that people have that they want me to talk about, and some things I've talked about in previous episodes and whatever, but there's just so many topics. So today I was just like, man, like, I want to like really go into it. I really just have I just want to talk about something. I want to get deep with something. And I ended up deciding that I want to share some trippy stories with you guys. I want to share some kind of, I guess you could call them, paranormal experiences that I've had throughout my life, because people do ask me that, and I've talked about kind of the essence of just energy, and just like a lot of trippy stuff about life that maybe could make you think about that stuff in a different way. But I've never really shared actual experiences that I have had with that, because I feel I wouldn't really talk about it if I hadn't had some kind of experience with it in my life, which I have. And so I kind of want to go into that a little bit here, and we'll just see what happens. I love telling stories. I don't do it a whole lot. I don't get to do it a whole lot. I feel like with this kind of stuff, specifically, it's just something that I don't I don't talk about with people a lot. It's not like I just bring it up to my friends, or just bring it up if I'm like at a party or something, or just meeting somebody. So a lot of times it's just experiences that I've had that kind of stay with me, and I kind of interpret my own way. But they have had a pretty large effect on my view, and it's not like it happens constantly, but it's happened enough times in my life where it has kind of revealed to me that there are many more things that we simply I think can't understand because of our physical limitations, and the fact that we're human and we only have 5 senses, which are limited in themselves. It's even something as simple as like a dog has a way stronger sense of smell than we do. That doesn't mean just because we can't smell something, the scent isn't there. We just can't, we're just not able to perceive it. And same with sound. Dogs can hear a much broader spectrum than we can. And that doesn't mean the sound's not there just because we can't hear it. It's still there. We just can't perceive it. So I feel like it's the same with things that we call paranormal. It's just we just can't understand it. We can't grasp it. We can't fully see the full picture. So I think it's kind of important to look at it that way, instead of immediately saying this is a ghost, this is like a dead person, this is their spirit, and then putting labels on it. It's just like, approach it with an open mind, and kind of that's kind of the way that I want to approach it today. Is just be open, just whatever you believe or don't believe, just try to be open and look at it that way. That maybe there's just things you don't know, there's things I don't know, there's things that none of us know or can understand, because we are human beings and because of our physical limitations. Okay, so I guess I'll start here. I'm probably going to kind of jump around a little bit, but I'm just going to try to share overall what I've experienced. So when I was young, this was a long time ago. This was when I was like really young, so let's say like 8, 9, kind of up till around maybe 12 or 13. And so I lived in a house, obviously, and it was just a place where like a lot of negative things happen, so like my parents fought a lot there. Like there was always kind of anger, there was always sadness, there was always fear, there was always just really bad emotions. And I'm not saying like all the time, it's like obviously I had good times as a kid, but just the kind of overall vibe there was chaos. And I obviously didn't understand anything until I was like old enough to understand anything, you know what I mean? So I just always felt that, like I just felt that, I felt kind of scared, I felt sad, I was confused, always comparing myself to people that I knew and saying like, like when I go to my friend's house, it doesn't feel this way, like why does my house feel this way? And just kind of, that was really the best way I could grasp it in my head. But as I started to get a little bit older, I think the first thing that I remember that happened, aside from like, always kind of feeling that like there was something there, like even if I was home by myself, I always just felt this like presence, I always just felt like I was like being watched, or I felt like there was just something there, and obviously like I didn't know, really, I didn't understand it. But what started to happen was in my room, my old room. I would wake up, and this started happening all the time. I would wake up, I slept in the complete dark. I would wake up and, that feeling like when you wake up and you're kind of half asleep. That would happen, and it was always there was a wall right beside my bed, and I would always see, like, it would just look like there was this, like, black figure just crawling on my wall. And I know it sounds terrifying, but that started to happen. I would just kind of wake up and look over there, and it would just look like this black thing on my wall. And, I would then, like, kind of jolt up and wake up and then turn the lights on. Obviously, there's nothing there. But it started to happen, like, quite often. And it kind of got to the point where it was, like, just really scaring me, because every time, like, I would, wake up, there would be nothing there. But it was like I saw it for a moment, and I felt the fear. I felt that feeling. And a couple times, what even happened was, like, I woke up and I opened my eyes, and it looked like there was somebody or something literally right beside me, like, looking at me. And I know, again, this sounds like really scary and really dark, but I'm gonna eventually get to the point with it. So just that kind of started to happen. And then as I got a little bit older, kind of the next thing that I remember happening was, I had a fish tank in my corner, okay, in my room. My room just started to fucking scare me, basically. But I had a fish tank in the corner, and not that really matters, but this started to happen too. So I would, like, be going to sleep, and I would hear this, like, it just sounded like something was, like, scratching my wall. And it always came from the corner where my fish tank was. And every single time that I called my parents in, it would stop. Every single time. They never heard it, but this happened, like, nights and nights and nights, over and over and over. And my dad would always say, no, it's just a mouse, it's just something, like, just like a little animal. But, like, it was not. Like, I know what a mouse sounds like, and this literally sounded like somebody scratching at my wall, like, with their hands. And I know, again, that's fucking terrifying. But yeah, I mean, it was terrifying. So just these weird things started to happen. And then as I kind of got a bit older, going into high school, things would, like, after my parents split up, it was just me and my mom living there, things would happen, like, I would be in the shower, and, I would hear, like, the kitchen drawer open and, like, utensils moving and shit, and I would just think my mom's home, and I would get out and my mom is not home from work, or just I would be in the bathroom, like, getting ready, and like, our floor used to squeak, kind of creak when people walked, and I would hear that, and just, like, say, like, Mom, like, and my mom would not be there, or just nobody would be there, and it was just always these, like, sounds. It just seemed like somebody was there. And this one time I was in the basement, and we just had a little night light in our hallway, and it was pitch black except for that light, and, like, I saw something run past it. Like, it didn't flicker, it was just like something went in front of it. Like, just shit like that used to start happening. And it got to the point where even, like, a couple times when my friends slept over, they had similar experiences. They had similar, like, just waking up and feeling really uneasy, feeling just really freaked out. This one night we all woke up at the same time, and just, like, felt this really weird energy, like, just shit like that would happen. So anyway, so I think from kind of a young age, whatever that stuff was, it was present in my life. It was something that I was aware of. It was something that I, like, had personally experienced. And again, it's not really, like, something I can just tell people for a fact. It's just like I just know what I experienced, as a kid, and that was part of it. And I didn't understand it whatsoever, like I do now a little bit, But so that was like part of kind of my childhood was just kind of these weird little experiences. And even like when I got into music and stuff, like this kind of shit was still happening. And the first time I lost somebody close to me was my grandfather. And that was really hard because I was pretty, I was still pretty young, but I was old enough to understand. And he was like, one of my best friends. Like we were so close, and he was always there for me through all the shit that I went through as a kid. Like he was always there for me. And I remember like when he passed away, he used to live at our place. Like him and my grandmother used to live like downstairs for a while. My mom, and like she would always tell me like she heard like sound like he was like snoring. And I remember on my birthday, it was the birthday after he passed away, I was sitting at my computer, pretty sure I was playing Minecraft or something, and I just heard this like thump behind me, and I turned around and there was this like giant candle which had been on our windowsill, just on the floor, like sitting straight up. And it was on my birthday. It was after he passed away, and my grandma and my mom were sitting in the kitchen, and they just started, like, my grandma, I just remember, started crying. It was just like, he's just like telling you happy birthday, you know what I mean? So just shit like that did happen to me. And I can't sit here and tell you that it happened because our brains always want to, like, they don't want to believe weird shit. So I think automatically you're just like, that's bullshit, and that's totally fine if you think that. I don't really care. I'm just kind of explaining to kind of lead up to where I'm going, that I had a lot of weird shit happen like that. And so after living in that house and kind of starting high school, getting into music, kind of finding my way a little bit, that stuff didn't really happen, and I wasn't home as much anymore. I was always at my friends' houses and stuff, so I kind of like that shit didn't really happen. My mom did end up moving to this other house, which was even, I think, just scarier to me. That the house she moved into, it was fucked, man. Like I just remember, like, anytime I was there, it just was heavy. Like the air was heavy, everything was heavy. And that house, I lived there for a little bit, and that's where I got super into meditation and super into starting to learn about spirituality and all that kind of shit. So when I lived there, I think because I was fucking with meditation every single day, learning more about it, trying lucid dreaming, just kind of opening my mind to all this like stuff that I never had. In a way, it was kind of opening me up to the paranormal stuff, I guess, a little bit again, and I had so many weird experiences there too with the same kind of shit. And people talk to me about shadow people, and I swear, like, I've seen that kind of shit too. Like, it wasn't necessarily like how people have explained it, but I would just, like, it just looks like shadows moving. It looks like people fucking running across shadows. Like, I just would see that shit all the time. And I had to leave because it was just such a heavy feeling there. And it was when I was kind of opening myself up to all this like spiritual stuff too. So I really felt the energy, like the energy of something not good, and I just couldn't do it. And so after that point, and I think partially because of the stuff that I experienced as a kid, in that regard, and it didn't feel good. It wasn't like it felt like interesting. It was bad. It did not feel good. It scared me. It felt negative. I think that allowed me to be really a lot more sensitive to just energy. So anytime it's like if I walk into a house or I meet somebody, I just was able to like vibe people more, because I know what that energy feels like. And some people carry pieces of that. Some buildings carry pieces of that. Like some situations you just get a bad feeling, and I feel like all that stuff kind of helped me to be in tune with that. And again, like getting into meditation and learning as much as I could about just energies and just looking at things through a different lens, kind of all built up to helping me like just be aware of that stuff. Okay, so anyway, like since then, that was when I was like 16, 17, I haven't really had any of those kind of experiences, in a negative way. I haven't really felt like there's been any like crazy like demon shit or like ghost shit, and I think part of it is because I see it in a completely different way now, but that's always stuck with me, right? That's always been something that I have experienced. And so it's like like I've had a lot of trippy experiences since then. I've had a lot of like weird like little moments where it's just like, what the fuck, that makes no sense, like that is like beyond, but it's never been like constant bad or anything like that. So this is kind of where I wanted to go with that. So believe I was 18 or 19, and I discovered, I've talked about this channel, I've talked about this dude before. I discovered something called Higher Balance Institute, which is started by this man named Eric Pepin, who I believe is from California. They're based in California. But I came across one of his videos, and right away what got me was he started to talk about something that he calls static. I don't know if any of you guys have ever experienced this before, but I have brought it up to people that I know, and some people say like, yo, I've seen that. Some people say like, yeah, like that's something I've thought about, I've just never like talked about it with anybody. And some people are just like, I have no clue what the fuck you're talking about. So essentially, like, if you're sitting in a dark room, or even just like a dimly lit room, and you just look at a wall, like you just look at the wall in front of you, and you just stare at it for a while, there, like, between you and the wall, there's like static. There's like this, it just like, I can see it right now, and I can see it all the fucking time now. But it's like, if you're especially, it's easier in a dark room. If you just look at a wall, like, don't stare, don't focus on the wall, but it's like what's around the wall. And the more you look at it, the more you open yourself up to it, I feel like it gets brighter and you start to notice it more. And then you can kind of look around and you realize it's literally fucking surrounding everything all the time. Even during the day, the more you practice, you can kind of start to see it. But he started to talk about that, and I was like, whoa, like, I have noticed that. I have noticed that. I've never heard anyone else talk about it. So I started getting really into his teachings, and, you know, he believes that reality is a simulation, which I personally don't know. Like, I don't really know. You know, I feel like, to me, life feels like a fucking video game, and it's like modeled exactly the way that we would model a video game. But, you know, I think, to me, in my mind, I have a really hard time understanding how something could create it, because that thing would also be it. So I love his teachings. I just don't know if I'm like 100% like, yo, I follow this to a T. But his teachings are fucking incredible, and got me to, you know, the point I'm at now with all of that, I think, and it helped me kind of on my journey. But he started to talk about this static, and the more that, you know, I listened to him and the things he had to say about it, and, you know, he started to talk about it as if, you know, that stuff is just kind of like pixels, kind of like pixels would be like on a computer screen. And you know, it's just crazy, because the more I started to, like, I was like, dude, like, what is this shit? Like, it's, I was never taught what that is. Like, it's everywhere though. So it's like almost like a fucking screen, you know. And it's like, it's weird. It's really crazy, and it still trips me out. But I remember I started to do like practices every night. So I would just like notice this static, and I would just like look at it, and I would sit in a dark room, and I would look at my hands. You know, I would just stare at my hands, like sometimes for like fucking hour, because the more I do that, the more like it looks like my hands kind of become part of that. And, you know, I don't know if you guys have ever read about like seeing auras and whatnot. Like, I don't really know like a whole ton about that specifically, but, you know, I've been at the point, like, I can see, it looks like my hands are glowing. Like, if I sit in that static long enough, and if I move my hands, it looks like almost like they're moving through water. It's just like, anyway, it's just really trippy, and if you should try it. I'll link you guys to a video. And this is like hard to explain. It's hard to articulate, because there's so much like I have to tell you. But essentially, I just started to like really dive into that, and I was like, yo, there's some trippy shit here. Like, there is some crazy shit here, and I've never heard anyone else talk about it. I've never talked about it with anybody else. So it just kind of became this like part of my awareness, that I was always like noticing this static. I was always like noticing, like, you know, that it was around other people, and certain people, I would notice it more, you know. And so I just really kind of became aware of that stuff, and I noticed it a lot when I was making music at nighttime. I would notice it around my speakers, and I would notice it around my computer, and to me that started to be like when there's energy flowing, like when there's like a lot of energy, which music is all frequency and energy, and I'm putting that focus on it. Like, I would notice a patch of that static like more dense, and that kind of led me to understanding that everything is energy, everything is moving. And then this is kind of something that I got into a little bit further, was about how, you know, just because it started to make me think about what I experienced when I was younger. And You know, because I did still even notice that when I was younger. I did see that when I was younger. I just had no fucking clue. But so I found this. I think it was a video or something. It might have been Eric talking about it. But it's just how like because everything is moving. Everything, even that looks solid, is vibrating really fast. Like nothing is actually solid or still. Everything is vibrating. So are we. And so is every emotion that we have. Has its own frequency and has its own vibration. That's why happy feels different than sad. That's why sad feels slower, heavier. Happier feels lighter, faster, because you know it all has its own vibration. Every thought that we put out, you know, is an actual electrical impulse with its own, you know, unique fucking vibration. Okay, think about this. Sorry, I had to take a moment to try to figure out how to explain this. Think about this, all right? If you are happy, either happy or sad. I'm gonna start with happy. I'm gonna go into sad. If you're happy, really having a great day, really having a good day, feeling amazing, and you come across somebody who is just super angry or super sad, and they kind of latch on to you and start talking to you and complaining, what happens? What do you feel? Like, if you think about that right now, what do you feel like in your chest? What is that feeling? You feel their energy. You feel that sadness because it has a frequency, it has a vibration that you notice a difference between how you feel and how they feel, because it's different, because theirs is a slower vibration, yours is happier, and it's like this pull of these two energies that are kind of just fucking with each other, and you feel that. And if you're not careful, you will let yours drop to their level. But here's the other way to kind of spin it. If you're feeling really sad, really upset, and somebody just comes up to you and makes you laugh your ass off, or just gives you a big hug and says like, I love you, like what happens? Boom, like that energy, even just for a moment, just dissipates, and you get brought up to that frequency because it's moving faster. And it's like everything in nature wants to grow. Everything in nature is looking to, you know, continue to grow and to expand itself. Like that is life. Like what is life always doing? It's renewing itself, it's growing, it's expanding exponentially. Same with energy. So it's trying to be, you know, it's trying to transcend. You know, that's what I think anyway. And I did read something about it, and I cannot for the life of me remember what it was called. It's like transcendental something. I cannot remember what it's called. But it's just kind of the principle of like how energy is always trying to also, you know, recreate itself, renew itself, expand itself, and, you know, essentially like sad becoming happy. So it's like eventually it will. So this, I guess my point with this is just how like energies and frequencies and vibrations do have an effect on each other, and I think there's lots of examples you could probably, you know, look at. But my point is, a wall is vibrating, right? A wall has its own special frequency. So let's just say there's a lot of anger. There's a lot of anger in this one room, constantly, all the time. There's a lot of sadness, there's a lot of anger, like being projected out of a human being or multiple human beings. So this wall, because it's right here and it's moving, and all this energy that is really strong because it's like conscious, you know, emotion, is eventually going to be absorbed somewhat by the wall, right? And I think this is part of why when you walk into a house or you walk into a building, you get a feeling, because everything in that room or in that place is vibrating and somewhat has absorbed whatever frequency the people in there are putting out. And it's the same as like if you take your friend's shirt, you know, just someone that you really love, and you put it on for a second, like for a moment you feel them, you know, and that's why like everyone has their own vibe, you know what I mean? So it's like whatever's happening in that space, it's like the things within that, like the house, or I think if it's built up over years and years and years and this constant negativity, or even if it's like constant positivity, it's like you walk into some people's houses and you just fucking feel happy. Or you walk into some people's houses, you just feel sad, you just feel like scared. Like I just really think it is like what's going on, and the energies that are being created there, I really think that gets absorbed into the space. So this is kind of why I was telling you about what was happening when I was a kid, because the more I understood this, I could look back and be like, yo, like that makes sense. There was a lot of negativity, there was a lot of fear, there was anxiety, there was anger, and like that's the shit that I felt when I was a kid. And if that creates some crazy manifestations that crawl on my wall, like I don't fucking know, but it's more about the essence of like fear. And I feel like fear can really change your brain, and fear can make you see things differently, it can make you hallucinate. So it's like maybe because the emotion of fear was always so present, it manifested itself through shit that I was afraid of. And, you know, I've had that happen throughout my life, and, you know, my little experience with psychedelics that I have had, which I could go into in a whole other video, you know, I've seen how fear can manifest itself. If you allow it to, you know, reality will reflect back what you project onto it. You know, if you're looking for something, if you're trying to find something, if you're constantly thinking of something, eventually you're going to see that back. You know what I'm saying? So I think it is kind of a similar thing. So I want to kind of try to explain that the best I could. It's very hard to articulate, but I think I did kind of say it how I wanted to. So anyway, this is kind of the story that I wanted to end off with after explaining all that stuff. So, Higher Balance Institute, Eric Pepin, I got very absorbed in a lot of his teachings and meditations and just kind of methods. Just a lot of things that I really clicked with. Really amazing stuff. Like even like he has a podcast called Rebel Guru Radio, which is part of the inspiration for my podcast. Even if you just listen to that, it's free. Like you will pick up so much shit and look at things in a different way. Like really cool. But anyway, so a couple years after I had gotten into his stuff, and kind of gotten to know like some of the people in the community, I went to one of his meditation retreats, which was in Rhode Island. So I live in Ontario, Canada. I had to fly there, and it was I think it was a 2-day retreat. So I'll try to sum up this story. So it was at a place, I can't remember what the name of it was, but it was in Rhode Island, which is kind of known for being a very like paranormal state, like a very like kind of ghosty, I don't know what the fucking word is, but like there a lot of weird stuff happens there, a lot of weird stuff has been documented in Rhode Island. And so I feel like it's a really cool place because he you know, a lot of his teachings are based around being completely open to paranormal experiences and seeking that almost, not just like hunting ghosts, but I'm just saying like the shit that I talk to you about, like that, it's like just, that is his whole essence. Like he's like, I want you to have those experiences, that is why I do what I do. So I was going there with the intention of like, I want to have some kind of crazy metaphysical experience that I haven't never had. And I did. So let me kind of give you a little rundown. So it was at this old temple, I don't know, you can call it a temple, like a Buddhist kind of retreat center. This really old building that was all wood. It was still really nice. It was in the middle of this huge forest with like a river and trails, and it was just kind of in the middle of nowhere off this like back road. So I got there, and there's probably like 40 other people there. This huge building. There was like monks walking around that were just not part of the retreat. They just were there. So throughout the weekend, kind of what happened was, he, you know, every day like would do lectures for a couple hours talking about these kind of things, talking about, you know, these kind of ideas like in person, and you know, just explaining them. And we would all do like little group meditations and this really trippy shit where we'd listen, you know, we would all sit in a circle and listen on our own individual headphones to this like sound of this like electricity, you know, going around 360 degrees in our headphones. And what we would have to do is slow it down and make it go the other way just using our minds. Like it wouldn't actually be changing, but we would have to do that. And it was like crazy shit like that was just so cool. And I remember at one point he had these 2 big speakers set up, and we just listened to the sound of cicadas. If you guys know what cicadas are, there's like those bugs in the summertime that all like chirp together and make this kind of pulsing sound. So we just listened to that, and the goal of that was, okay, like what do you hear within that sound? So like for example, if you ever have like a fan on, sometimes it sounds like people are talking. So it was that idea. So it was like, what do you hear? And so like I would hear like a horse galloping, I would hear like the ocean, like I would hear just random shit, and he would kind of go around and say like, what did you hear? What did you hear? So it was like the space between the cicadas all, you know, synchronizing and making this sound between all those, like these other sounds would come out. So it was like, okay, like let's focus on that. Let's notice like the space between things. And he started to talk about how that in itself is some kind of like crack in reality, because in a way, if you, like let's just say it in a simpler way, you have a fan on in your room and it sounds like people are talking. What's happening is you are literally experiencing something else. You're experiencing people talking. So that fan is allowing you to move through and experience something completely different and go somewhere else. So he started to talk about it in this way. It was really fucking trippy. But anyway, so the goal of the weekend and his whole kind of, he's like, you know, what he wanted to accomplish was something that he called the in-between. So, and that's again why everything was focused on like the space in between things and what's in between everything, and looking at that, because we're always focused on like, you know, the whole, we're always focused on like what's right in front of us. So what he basically told us, he's like, by the end of the weekend, at the end of the weekend, after I have given you this information, after we have done what we need to do, everyone is going to do a group, like, I guess you can call it hypnosis or you can call it meditation, and we're all going to enter the in-between. This is what he called it. And it's basically an altered state of consciousness that kind of feels similar to being on psychedelics, or being just like, you know, just having your brainwaves completely slowed down, and, you know, just being in a, like, basically tripping but not taking any drugs at all. And obviously it's like, you hear something like that, you're like, that sounds really cool, I don't understand like what that would be like or how to get there, but okay, just be open. So throughout the weekend I had some strange experiences, and the cool part about this was that everybody at that building understood this shit about like the static and about energy, and everybody had read and been absorbed in his teaching, so there was this common kind of vibe, and that shit was powerful because there's like a bunch of humans that are consciously projecting that vibe, especially through group meditation. So this whole place had this kind of openness to like shit that it just feel like is closed off otherwise, and that was crazy. And I ended up like, you know, seeing some weird shit. I remember going to the basement, and this like black concrete room, and I stood in this like cellar with these two other dudes, and because one of them was like, yo, I think there's like something down here, so we went down there and we just stood there, and I just started to feel that same fucking presence that I used to feel when I was a kid, but it wasn't like scary, and it was pitch black, but this like static shit started getting really bright because we were all focused on it. We were all focused on this one corner of this room, and it started growing, and it literally looked like it started to form into the shape of like a really tall person, or like human looking creature, and it started to like sway a little bit, and we were like talking to it, and then like the one guy like shone his flashlight on it, and like normally when you shine the light on in the dark it's like immediate, but it was like this patch of static shit. It was really dense, so it looked like it stayed for like a split second and then left. So just shit like that. But okay, this is kind of my final story because I know I've kind of rambled on. So at the end of the weekend, we did end up doing this, whatever it was, going in between, and it started with him sitting there, and he just started saying, "The room is long and narrow. The room is long and narrow. The room is long and narrow." Dude, like even saying it right now, I'm like, it just fucking trips me out. But like for some reason, when he said that, like it just was, something's like just felt like it started to shift, and he just kept repeating it over and over and over and over and over, and a couple like other weird things. But yo, by the end of it, I literally felt like I was like in a different fucking reality. Whatever he did, whatever he said, whatever the collective vibe was, it was like something shifted. So I did feel, and it's hard to even remember, it almost feels like when you have a really vivid dream and you wake up, you try to remember it, but because it was happening at such a high rate, like a high frequency, or you know, like your brain is just, it was being processed faster than your waking state, you can't really remember it because it starts to fade away, because like you're not processing in that high of a rate, like at your current state. So it's hard for me to even kind of think about, because it was just like happening at a different fucking state. But anyway, this was like probably the weirdest experience I ever had. So I ended up just walking around. It's like once everybody was in that state, he said, all right, don't talk to anybody, go do your own thing, go walk around, explore, walk around outside, just whatever you feel, go do it. So everyone's just doing their own thing. And I walked through the whole building. I remember I found this hallway with this weird red light, and it looked like the hallway went on for fucking ever. And I remember going outside, and there's this one light that was generally just on. It was like blinking, so I just started to notice all this weird shit. And I barely remember even going to bed. And we slept in these little rooms with like just mattresses on the floor. There's no fucking internet, there's no nothing. It's just fucking, you know what I mean? Like it's a temple, you know what I mean? And So this was the weirdest thing, and I will never forget this, and this is kind of the story I'm going to end off with. So I went to bed after that, after being the in-between, the altered state, whatever the fuck that was. And so I went to sleep, and I woke up at probably around 5 or 6 in the morning. And I woke up to a police officer knocking on our room door. And the lady that cooked food for everybody, super sweet lady, was also there with him. And so I woke up, and I was the only person that was awake. And the cop was peeking his head in, because like lightly knocking. He's like, hey, like, is everybody okay? And I was like, yeah, like everyone's just asleep. And I was kind of confused, like, really fucking confused. And so I kind of woke up a little bit more. So the police officer said, well, we just got an emergency call. Like, we got dialed from this building. And then the lady who cooked the food said, well, the only landline is in this room. The only landline in this building is in this room. Okay? But the only fucking landline was right above my head, where I was sleeping on the floor. It was literally beside my fucking head. And there was no phone plugged into it. And I know that sounds like complete bullshit, but yeah, that's what happened. There was no phone, there was nothing, and none of us know what the fuck happened. I have no fucking clue. All I know is that everybody in that place, I think, altered something, and there was some crazy ass energy going on. There was some crazy ass shit, and again, like energy, frequency, electricity, who fucking knows? But that's what happened. And they obviously, the cop and her just left, because it was like, well, all right, well, everyone's fine, like, who knows? But dude, that stuck with me, man, because I have no fucking clue what happened, and like I was right beside it. Like, there was not a phone plugged into it. And it wasn't, he said it wasn't like from a cell phone, it was from that line. So that was really fucking strange. So anyway, guys, I think that's probably good. But that was one of the weirdest experiences I had, and since then I've had I mean, my whole life feels like a fucking trip at this point because of the stuff that I think about all the time. It just, my life starts to feel like a trip, and it kind of drives me nuts sometimes. You know, it's amazing and I love it, but the more that I think about it, the more questions I start to ask myself, the more I start to put things together. My life feels like something completely different than it did even 6 months ago. And I think the whole thing is just fucking paranormal. The whole thing's a paradox, the whole thing's a mystery, the whole thing is magic, and that's just the nature of it. So when you have weird shit happen within that, it's like it makes sense, because the whole thing is a fucking paranormal experience when you think about it. Like, when we talk about ghosts, we take for granted us, we take for granted our existence, right? Like, we're trying to figure out, like, oh, what are these weird things, like, that we're seeing in ghosts and shit, but it's like, yeah, what about us? Like, what about the fucking world? What about fucking life? Like, don't take that for granted. Like, that is weird. That is weirder in itself than seeing a fucking candle move. You know what I mean? Like, yo, think about that. And it's like, once you start to think about those things, it's like, what is going on? So, yeah. Alright, well, I think that's about it. If there's other stuff you want me to talk about, please drop a comment down there. I love reading your comments. It really helps me to kind of get a better idea of what you guys want to hear. So that was cool. That was a trippy one. I like sharing those stories. So yeah, new music's coming soon. I know I keep saying that, but it is. I'm working on it, and it's 5 new songs I'm really excited about. Going on tour. I just announced some more tour dates with Q's What We Aim For. Playing Ireland finally. I'm so pumped to play Ireland. And so all those links are below to all that stuff, and Stay Cozy merch right here. Check it out. This is going to be the design. I'm printing on shirts. I'm just waiting for my t-shirt press to get here, so I'll have those ASAP. But yeah, I think that's about it, guys. Thanks for watching. I love you. Stay cozy. Make sure you subscribe, hit that bell notification, and I will see you next week for another Coffee Thoughts, and Friday for another random video. Alright, love you guys. Stay cozy. Peace.